Hi everybody. I have to be a little quiet because my brother George is visiting from Yuma. I got him to stop at the Indian store for me today, and he brought me this as a surprise. And he's real proud that he got it. But I have to tell you, there's only one thing to do with this, which I'll show you in a minute. But first, let's just look at the label. Coconut water, you know, is not compliant, and this is why. 11 ounces, 16 grams of sugar. Woo! I don't think so. This is what we're going to do with this. That's the best thing you can do with coconut water. I think it might help clean out your pipes. Hi everybody, it's Janae Canis. Welcome back to Lectin-Free Solutions with another Plant Paradox and ApoE4 compliant recipe. Today we're going to make something really delicious. These are so tasty and really easy to make. We're still in our lockdown, or in our shelter in place, so we're trying to raid the pantry and make yummy food out of things that we already have. So today, this recipe is they're Thai tuna patties, and I'll show you this is the brand of ahi tuna that we're using from Costco. It's a wild tuna, and it is also mercury tested, so it has no mercury in it. Now, if you don't have tuna, don't fret, because you can also use wild-caught Alaskan salmon. So that also will work. Has a little different flavor, but it's still good. So anyway, I like to try and give you options because we don't all have everything, and it's not so easy to run to the store for things today. So this is the rundown on what you're going to need for this recipe. You're going to need either 2 cans of tuna drained or 2 cans of wild-caught salmon drained. Now, actually for ApoE4s, salmon is a good food, but it has to be eaten in moderation. It has a lot of saturated fat, so we really try not to eat this very often and use the tuna in place of that. But for the rest of you Plant Paradox people, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so we have 2 cans that are drained. We have that now in the pan, and to that we're going to add 1 shredded carrot, a half a cup of cilantro. Now, we've had this discussion before. I know some of you do not like cilantro at all. So there's a lot of options. You can use Thai basil. You can use regular basil. You can also use mint. Mint's a great substitute. And you know, it's very easy. If you haven't ever tried it, it's super easy to grow mint in a pot on your patio. It's one of those you don't ever want to let get loose in your garden because it takes everything over. I grow my own, and we're going to use some of that in the dressing, but we're going to use cilantro today. So this is a half a cup of chopped cilantro. We have 2 teaspoons of fish sauce. Now, this is the other option. With chili peppers, with Plant Paradox, you're really supposed to seed and deskin. If they have been fermented, which these have, then you can use the regular chili. And also, if you don't have any fermented chilies, you can easily use sriracha or any other type of fermented hot sauce. Works great. So we like things spicy, so I have about a tablespoon here. But use this to taste. You know, maybe you don't even want it spicy at all. So you can eliminate that, or start with maybe a teaspoon of sriracha and work up, or a teaspoon of these are actually jalapeno peppers that I fermented, and they're chopped and diced. So put that in. The next thing is a tablespoon of grated fresh ginger. Now, another tip I have for you, you know, ginger doesn't, I use a lot of ginger, but I still don't always use it up before it molds. So I learned from my mom that the best thing to do with ginger is to actually put it in a bag and put it in the freezer. and it stays perfectly good, and you can actually grate it while it's frozen. It's such a great tip, and that way you always have fresh ginger on hand. There's no excuse for not using it. So anyway, that all goes in there, and then we have 1 egg that we're going to beat and add that in. And we don't want too much salt because we have the fish sauce, but we are going to give it a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. And then we'll mix this all up into our fish patty mixture, and we'll check it out. You know, you never know how it's going to be with binders. Sometimes you need a little bit more, sometimes you need a little bit less. Now last time that I made this, 1 egg was, I only made 1 can, and 1 egg was really too much. And this looks like maybe, for this 2 cans, it looks like I actually am going to need another, at least an egg yolk. Never be afraid to go up and down on these things. It's just the way it is when you cook. You know, recipes vary every single time, so just be relaxed about it. There's, you know, this recipe's not rocket science. You can really put it together however you like. Okay, let's try that now. Oh yeah, that's much better. We want, because what we want to happen here is we want to be able to put this in our hands and make it form into a patty so that we can get it into a ball shape and then put it into the frying pan. So we're going to go ahead, first before we go to the frying pan, I'm going to make the dipping sauce that goes with these. So we'll set this off to the side for the moment. Okay, before we fry up those nice fish patties, I'm going to get the dipping sauce all made. It's super easy, and this is really a great sauce you can use as, you can actually use it as a salad dressing, you can use it as a vegetable dip, you can use it for lots of different things. So sometimes I double the recipe on this, and then you can use it throughout the week. It's like a lot of other Asian dressings. It's really tasty with on steamed vegetables. Anything really, it just jazzes it up. Okay, this is how simple it is. We've got rice wine vinegar. We're going to have about 1/3 cup of that. There we go, there's 1/3 cup. Now, the other thing that we're going to use is Boca Sweet. Now, this is a new compliant sweetener that really is absolutely the one that I think is the closest tasting to real sugar. It's a little bit expensive, but if you use it for recipes like this where you don't want the taste of erythritol, it works well. It's also great in some baking goods, but not in things that need to be crispy. Like cookies, it's not really great unless you're making a soft cookie. But you might want to give this a try. It's one of my new favorites for compliant sweeteners. So we're going to start off with about 1 tablespoon. We may have to adjust this depending upon how sour the lime juice is. So now to this, we're also going to add the zest of 1 whole lime. And as you can see, I have my trusty microplaner out here. If you don't have one of these, you need one. They're just really fabulous. It makes zesting everything super easy. Okay, so we got that in there. Now we've got, I have this one already cut, so we'll use this. We want the juice of 1 whole lime. I know it seems like a lot of acidity with the rice wine vinegar, but rice wine vinegar is fairly mild, and lime juice just gives it, you know, there's something about lime juice that just nothing beats it. It has such a wonderful flavor. So we're going to do that. Add that in. There's no seeds in this, which I love. And then we have, you know, this is optional. I'm going to put a small squirt of sriracha in here because I like things spicy. So you may not, so don't worry about it. Now let's just go ahead and mix those. Mix the liquid and the Boca Sweet together, and the sriracha. We'll give it a little taste and see what we think. See if it's sweet enough. It's too sour. You need to have a balance between the sweet, sour, and the hot. It tastes pretty good to me. Okay, I don't think I need any adjustment. So Now we've got a half a cup of chopped cilantro. We're going to add that in there. And I have a 1/4 teaspoon of chopped mint that came out of my garden. Now, as I mentioned, don't get paranoid about the cilantro. If you don't like it, just use something else. Use mint, use green onions. That works perfectly. Oh, that reminds me, in the patty recipe, when you see it posted, you'll notice that it calls for 1 whole green onion. My mom is going to be eating with us, and she can't eat onions. So I have one chopped to go on top of the burgers so that the rest of us can still have onion, but that way she'll still be able to eat with us. Anyway, this is as simple as it gets. The dipping sauce is all ready. All we have to do now is fry up the burgers and let this sit and marinate a little bit, and we'll be ready to eat. Okay, we're almost finished with the sauce. You know what? I decided at the last minute that I think after tasting it, I'd like to have a little tiny bit of toasted sesame oil. So I'm just going to add a very small amount to give it a little richer flavor. Really not very much, maybe less than a teaspoon. And that's going to give it a nice rich flavor. Okay, we're just about ready to make these into some small patties. We don't want them too large, and get them into the olive oil. You want sort of a medium-high heat. You know, one thing that I should have mentioned is that I had to add that extra egg, and the reason that I did was because I realized that I was using medium eggs rather than extra large eggs that I usually buy. You know, everything is a little bit different today because we have to get at the store what's available. So that was the reason. Another thing that's good to know is that if you're making any kind of patty, whether it's lentil burgers or whether it's fish cakes or salmon cakes, if your mixture gets too wet, then just add a little bit of cassava flour or something like that to hold it together, and it'll be fine. These things are pretty forgiving. It's just that if they're too wet, when you go to flip them, they're not going to hold together. Now, one nice thing about these is that the tuna is already cooked, so we don't need to worry about these being in the pan for terribly long. We just want to get them heated through. The carrot is so thin that it takes very little time to cook. I think I can only get one more in there, and then we'll let them fry up for a little bit. Okay, now we'll just get them browned on one side, and we'll turn them over as soon as that happens. Hi everybody, these have been cooking now for about 5 minutes, and they're completely golden brown on one side. We'll probably need another 3 minutes or so to crisp up the other side, and we're going to be ready to eat. These smell really good. You're going to like this. Here we are, all finished, ready to eat. These things smell so good, you're not going to believe it. Now, if you have a bigger family than 4, you can use 3 cans. If you have just the 2 of you, you may want to do 1 can. These do last in the refrigerator, and you can reheat them in the frying pan, so I wouldn't be nervous about making too many of them. They don't last very long. They're awfully tasty. Thanks again for stopping by my kitchen. While you're here, please like and subscribe so that we can make more videos for you.